Cells, the building blocks of life. Cytology and Robert Hooke. Cytology is the study of cells. The word ology means to study, and cyto comes from the word cells. Robert Hooke, a scientist around in the year 1665, was one of the first people to look at cork under a microscope. He looked at the cork and he saw the leftover parts of what used to be a cell. At this time, no one knew that cells were the basic structure of life. Remember, they used to think that living things came from non-living things in the process of spontaneous generation. Here's a picture of Robert Hooke. This is cork. Cork comes from the cork tree. This is a wine bottle cork, as I'm sure some of you have seen. When Robert Hooke looked underneath the microscope, this is the picture that he saw. You can see the little squares and the circles. Those are the walls of the plant cell, all stacked up on top of each other like piles of bricks. People continued to keep studying about cells for a little bit longer. In 1838, a German botanist named Matthias Schleiden suggested that all plant tissues were made of cells, not just cork. And 1 year later, Theodor Schwann made a similar suggestion for animals. He said that all animals were made of cells. Then, a few years after that, Rudolf Virchow suggested that all cells had to come from other cells that already existed. These ideas all stuck together made up the cell theory. Remember, a theory is a hypothesis and another person's hypothesis, and thousands of other people's hypotheses all stuck together. The cell theory has three basic parts. As you can see here, Schleiden said that all plants are made of cells, all animals are made of cells, and Virchow said all cells came from pre-existing cells. So therefore, the parts of the cell theory were, all living things are made of cells. Here's a picture of a plant cell. There's a plant, the leaf, and here's a picture of an animal cell. There's an animal, the insect, on top of the leaf. Both of these things are multicellular organisms. That means that they are made of more than one cell. All living things come from other living things. This is a picture of mitosis. It shows cellular division, one cell splitting into two cells. What you were seeing was the cell DNA being duplicated and then being pulled apart into two separate cells. If the video were to continue, you would see that the cells would split further apart. The little red things are centromeres reaching out to grab the DNA. The DNA is the blue stuff in the middle. Now this picture shows how one cell is made into another cell. Just like when you lose your skin cells and new skin cells form underneath them, this is how they're made. The picture to the right shows a mama duck and a baby duck. The baby duck obviously came from the mother duck as well. There was a slightly different cellular process there. Here are the three parts of the cell theory one more time. All living things are made up of one or more cells. Cells are the basic structure of life. And all cells have to come from other cells. Remember, they do not spontaneously generate. Take a look here at all of the cell parts. You've been reviewing these in class. Notice this is an animal cell. In the very center, you have the nucleus. The nucleus is surrounded by the nuclear membrane, called the nuclear envelope in this picture. Inside the nucleus is the chromatin, the DNA, and the nucleolus. The nuclear pores, which we haven't discussed recently, are little holes within the nucleus that allow materials to go in and out. Attached to the nucleus is the endoplasmic reticulum. You can see all the little black dots on it. Those are the ribosomes. Outside of that is an orange Golgi complex with a little tiny vesicle, also called sometimes a vacuole, next to it. The Golgi body helps package up things and send them out of the cell. Just to the left of the Golgi complex, or the Golgi body, is the mitochondria. Mitochondria is actually a term that's plural for a singular mitochondrion. The mitochondria is the energy or powerhouse of the cell. To the left of the mitochondria, you can see floating little dots. Those are ribosomes. Remember, lots of ribosomes were on the endoplasmic reticulum. We haven't discussed what that does, but they float around and they help make proteins, and the proteins are what builds your body. Continuing on up to the left, and just to the very left side of the cell, you'll see something called a lysosome. Only animal cells have lysosomes. Lysosomes are the digestive material in the cell. Any waste products or anything that's not wanted anymore, the lysosome chews it up basically and gets rid of it. Continuing around the cell, you'll see something on the outside called the flagellum. This propels the cell and moves it through its surroundings. There's also little arms, sometimes called cilia, that will do the same thing. Cilia come in multiple ones, and flagella is usually one big, long one. In your throat and your nose are lots of cilia. Whenever you get a whole bunch of dust in the air and it makes you cough or sneeze, what's happening is the dust is getting stuck on the little cilia hairs in your nose, and they're getting collected, and it's all being pushed down until it comes together in a big pile of nasty mucus, and then you can blow your nose. The cytoplasm is the blue jelly-like liquid that fills the entire inside of the cell. The cytoplasm holds all the materials and allows them to move freely around. Now, we haven't talked much about the centrioles yet. Those are the little blue star-like things in the top. The centrioles help in cell division. You saw the centrioles reach out in the previous slides with the little red things, and they reached out and grabbed the blue DNA. There are some other parts in here, but we're not going to discuss those right now. See if you can name the parts in this cell based on what we just went over. Go ahead and stop this for now and name as much as you can. If you need to, go back and review the previous slides. Here's a plant cell. The plant cell has a lot of the same things as the animal cell. There are the same mitochondrion, same nucleus, DNA inside, nucleolus, etc., endoplasmic reticulum. There is a huge vacuole to the right side of the plant cell. This helps give the plant cell structure. It also stores lots of water and other liquids and stuff that the cell is going to use later. Whenever you see a plant that has wilted or is kind of looking really limp, lots of times it needs more water, and its vacuole is pretty much empty. You will also see that there are these little green things called chloroplasts that look like they have stacks of circles inside of them. Those little stacks of circles are called chlorophyll. This is an extremely important part to the plant. The chloroplast traps the sunlight inside of the chlorophyll, and it uses that sunlight to make food for the plant. Plants don't eat food. You've never seen a plant reach over and grab a hamburger, have you? Well, we reach over and grab a hamburger when we're hungry, but a plant, when it's hungry, has to make its own food. And this is how it does it, through a process called photosynthesis. We'll learn about that later. Looking around the rest of the cell, you'll notice it also has the cytoplasm and similar materials to the animal cell. But on the very outside is a thick cell wall. This gives a plant a rigid structure. It makes it so that it can stack, and it keeps it from allowing things to go in and out as easily as the animal cell. Now take a look at this plant cell. Can you name the parts here? See what you can name, and once again, if you need help, go on back to the previous slides. That's it for the animal and plant cell parts and functions.